Awesome. Well, we are excited to present Krownie today for our silo tank. We've got Ishan and Victor here going to be presenting to us. They know the drill. We're going to be doing about 15-20 minute demo to the crew. Everyone, if you have questions, obviously feel free to come off mute, ask questions in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand as well. We will ask questions after the demo, and then we'll be able to flip it. Ishan, you'll ask the group questions, any questions that you have for us as well. But yeah, feel free to go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this call. It's a pleasure to meet you all, virtually rather. So my name is Ishan. I'm one of the co-founders of Krownie. I'm working alongside Ayush, who unfortunately isn't able to make this call, and Victor, who's also part of the Krownie team. So Krownie, in short, is an AI recruiter. And part of the motivation for us developing this product is one thing we saw as software engineers ourselves. We find that we go through a lot of interview rounds, and we found that we decided to think of it from the recruiter standpoint. From a recruiter standpoint, going through a lot of rounds, specifically the initial round where they're just trying to get initial feedback and initial information about a candidate, often seems like a very time-consuming and tedious process. So we were thinking like, hey, how can we sort of make things more efficient? So that's sort of, once we sort of realize how nice a lot of AIs are modern, how nice a lot of modern AIs are, especially how nice they are conversationally, we're like, hey, listen, let's try and create a AI interviewer, which is what we developed with Krownie. So obviously, AI recruiting, it's a bit of a polarizing topic. Some people are sort of very against it, but also there are a lot of companies, a lot of people that are for it. Coinbase, for example, is a company that we saw recently make that shift towards AI recruiting. And obviously, it's not something we want to see take over the recruiting industry. Like, it's not something that we expect to have candidates face in all rounds. We kind of see Krownie specifically as more of that initial stage AI recruiter that can help gather initial information and essentially supplement that candidate's resume with more details. Because at the end of the day, with a resume that's only a page or two long, there's really only so much data that you can gather from that. So we're hoping that Krownie can help enrich that resume with more valuable information. So that way, A, it saves time for recruiters, and B, at the end of the day, a recruiter and recruiting team is able to make a better judgment call and make a better decision on who they think is the best fit for their job. So yeah, that's pretty much just a general summary of Krownie. So I can go ahead and present the demo, and I will do that right now. I'm hoping that my internet is cooperative and doesn't start shaking on me, but let's see how that goes. So just to confirm, are you guys able to see my screen right now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So this is our landing page right now. So kind of when you type in Krownie.com, you'll come to this page. So we have sort of a way for companies to request demos. We also have a demo right here of the actual AI recruiter. So you can actually see how well and conversational the AI is. It's not a very robotic AI, and you'll kind of see as I present this demo how nice it is. And what's really nice is we can also go global as well. So it supports about 15 different languages, and we are more than happy to support more if we see any clients that might have that need. So kind of that's just a general summary of our landing page. And what I'll do right now is I'll actually go and present the dashboard for Krownie. So when you're a recruiter, this is sort of the view that you'll see. So we have things called a workspace. So a workspace can be something where you can have a specific workspace for different companies that you work on. For example, if you're a recruiter that manages recruiting for multiple agencies or multiple companies, you can create a workspace for each of your companies, or agencies rather. So what I can present is I have like 2 sample workspaces right here. So I'll take a look at Dallas AI. So you can go ahead and view that. So basically the idea is in these workspaces, you can create things called interview flows. And an interview flow is basically a configuration for the interview, how you want the AI to actually conduct the interview, and basically how you want that interview configured. So you can apply a lot of configuration related properties to that. So I can go ahead and do that right now, actually. So if you click this button right here, we have 2 options. One, we can just simply use AI magic. But for the sake of this demo, I think it's best if we just start from scratch. That way you can see all the different steps that can be taken in order to actually create this interview flow. So we can enter a company name. So let's say, we'll just call it test company for now. Well, you can create a job title. So let's just say software engineer. And we also have the ability to choose the interview type. So we can either go behavioral or technical. When I say technical, this is more so like a verbal technical assessment. This is not like, sometimes when people hear technical, they think of like a coding pad and specifically with context of software engineering, like typing out some code and being able to evaluate skills based on that. That is a feature we're currently in the process of working towards, but at the moment isn't live yet. So for the sake of this demo, I'll go with behavioral. And what's really nice is we're actually integrated with a lot of ATS systems, over 40 different ATS systems. Ashby is the most popular one, so we have direct integration with Ashby. So what's really nice is if you create an interview and you hand the link over to a candidate to conduct, essentially, once the interview is complete, all the feedback that Krownie provides at the end gets uploaded to Ashby as well, and that way they can keep everything in a nice unified platform. We also have configurations on enabling the video interview. So if you want to enforce the camera to record the candidate while they're presenting, you can do that as well. So I can do that for this demo. I'll go next. And over here, this is where we actually type in the actual questions that we'll be asking for the interview. So we can just go ahead and generate the questions right here. It takes usually a minute. But again, this is all dependent on the context of the job description you provide. So sort of in the previous steps, we can provide a job description, and based on that context, we can generate certain questions. In addition, obviously, there are certain questions that are good to ask for a specific role. So that also is taken into account when generating these questions. But as always, you can always just generate the manually into the questions like directly, and all will essentially work as expected. So that is essentially the question part of the interview workflow creation. So over here, this is where we actually configure the agent. So for the agent, we have different languages that we can select for. So these are the ones that we support right now, and we can support some more as well. We have different agents as well. So let me know if you can hear this.
I'm not hearing anything on my end. I don't know if anybody else is hearing anything.
Let me double check just to make sure I am sharing my audio. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, let's try this again.
Hi, I'm Benjamin, a technical recruiter at Krownie. It's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing today?
We can hear it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So basically, we have different voices that can essentially.
Hi, I'm Chloe, a technical recruiter at Krownie. It's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing today?
So these are the type of voices that we can choose. So obviously, totally up to the recruiter to choose.
Hi, I'm Benjamin, a technical recruiter at Krownie. It's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing today?
Sorry, for the sake of this demo, I'll go with Benjamin. I'll hit next. And over here, once we create the interview flow for the candidates to actually use for the interviews, you can see sort of a general review, see all the questions, and all that fun stuff. So what's going to happen now is we'll go ahead and create that interview. So it's going to take some time, but there we go. So the way we can actually hand over this interview to candidates is there's two ways. One, you can simply copy and paste an interview link and forward that over to the candidate. Alternatively, we also have a use case where you can just, paste the interview link in the actual job posting. So for example, if you have a LinkedIn job posting, you can just paste the link right then and there, and any candidate can essentially go in and conduct the interview. And what's nice about Krownie is because there's really no direct involvement from the recruiter, we can really accept as many applications as we want and get as much data as we want about all the candidates that are interested in that position. So it really gives us a lot of data to work with, and that way we can make some really good judgment calls. Alternatively, also you can also go with direct email as well. So that way, if you don't want all your candidates to essentially do that Krownie interview, you can just select and send to a few. So what I'll do right now is I will copy this link. I will have to reshare my screen, so bear with me 1 second. But essentially, I'll be pasting that link in a new tab. Let's see. Just to double check, are you guys able to see my screen right now?
Yes.
Awesome, cool, perfect. So this right here, so basically what I did was, so previously I just took that interview link, I pasted that into a new tab. So right here, we have what the candidate is actually going to see from their end. So again, this is when we distribute that interview link, and now the candidate's actually able to conduct the interview. So we'll go ahead and start the interview, like so. I'll enter my name, my email. I can enter my phone number as well. I'm also able to upload my resume as well. And again, depending on if the candidate does or not or doesn't, they can also ask questions about the resume specifically as well. We can go ahead and start the interview. Let's see how this fares. There we go. So I'm going to do a quick mic check just to make sure. Yep, so mic is working. Cool. I will go ahead and continue now. Audio is working fine for me. And I'll go ahead and continue that. So you can see right now I have the camera sort of turned on. So again, this is something that I actually asked for it to be for the candidate to do during the interview configuration.
Hi, Eshan. I'm Benjamin, a technical recruiter at Test Company. It's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Let's dive right in. Here's the first question. What was a challenging technical problem you faced in a previous project, and how did you approach solving it?
Sure. So a technical challenge that I faced in a previous company was while I was working at Krownie, I had a project that involved setting up video interviews for candidates.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Can you tell me more about the specific technical hurdles you encountered while setting up the video interviews?
So a very specific hurdle that I had was I'd find that at certain times at the end of a long interview, it would take a long time for the video to upload. So as a result, this results in poor user experience to the customer.
I see. So the slow upload times were impacting the user experience. How did you go about diagnosing the root cause of the slow upload times?
In terms of diagnosing the root cause, really the main thing that I did was analyzing the logs, like looking at the network requests and looking at which ones were time consuming, and based on that, I was able to narrow down what the root cause was.
That's a good approach. What specific actions did you take based on your analysis of the logs and network requests to address the slow upload times?
In terms of the mitigation for this issue, what I ended up doing was upload videos in chunks. So that way, at specific time intervals, chunks get uploaded. At the end, we only have to do the synthesis, and the synthesis takes a lot less time. So that's ultimately how we're able to lower that upload speed.
That's a clever solution. Breaking down the upload into smaller chunks is a great way to improve the user experience. Here's the next question. Can you describe a time when you had to prioritize multiple tasks with tight deadlines? How did you manage your time effectively?
Sure. So in terms of a task where I had to manage multiple deadlines, again, I can bring back Krownie as an example for that. We had a customer who wanted, we had two customers that had two different asks. One was a specific language change, and one was for a new feature that we made. So based on that, we had deadlines that were very tight.
Okay, two customers with different needs and tight deadlines. How did you go about determining which tasks to prioritize and how to allocate your time between them?
Ultimately, it just came down to being able to figure out which to prioritize first. Obviously, we took the approach of simply doing what was easiest first. In terms of the language requirement, that was a very easy fix, so we prioritized fixing that quickly. And then after that, we went ahead and resolved the other issue with the new feature that they requested.
That makes sense. Prioritizing the easier task first to get a quick win is a good strategy. Here's the next question. Tell us about a situation where you had a disagreement with a team member. How did you handle it and what was the outcome?
So I'm just going to quickly end the interview right there. So that's kind of roughly what a candidate would see from their side when they're doing a Krownie interview. As you can see, the AI is actually quite intelligent. It's not simply just asking the questions that you've asked during the interview configuration. It's able to follow up with other questions as well, ask specific questions as well. So, from a customer standpoint, it does quite well conversationally. At the end, this is sort of what the candidate sees. They can just rank the experience and submit. But that's ultimately what it looks like from the candidate side. And if you give me a minute, it should also upload the results to the recruiter side as well. So let me see if that has finished. So you can see right here, this is the interview that I just completed. You can see right here that we have a specific Krownie score. So I'll go ahead and view the details. So what's nice about Krownie is right off the bat, you'll see an overall score along with a summary of how the candidate actually performed in that interview. In addition to that, we have another evaluation where we see all the different strengths and areas for development. So for example, some of the strengths that I had was, demonstrating practical problem solving by implementing video uploads in chunks. There's also weaknesses as well. For example, communication is often disjointed and lacks structured articulation. So obviously there's a lot of data that the recruiter can also use to help make a better judgment call in terms of what they think of their thoughts of the candidate. In terms of technical feedback, we can also see all the questions that were answered. And what's really nice is we also have different timestamps as well. So you can always go back and play the actual interview.
Test company. It's a pleasure to meet you faced in a previous project.
Project that involved. So you can see by the speakers are color coded. So for example, the blue sections are from when the AI recruiter is speaking. The red is from when I'm speaking. The video upload takes a bit of time on the background. Usually this happens within about 5 minutes after the video has finished. So that usually takes a bit of time. But ultimately what happens is we're able to see a nice condensed page with all the interview feedback that we have. And we also have timestamps. So for every piece of feedback, for example, this clarity feedback. Sure. So a technical challenge that we can jump directly to that point in time of the interview. And that way we're able to actually map specific feedback points that Krownie provides to actual moments in the interview. So that pretty much wraps up the demo for Krownie. As you can see, it's just a nice way to get some additional feedback from candidates. It's a very easy way to do some high volume recruiting. So that way, recruiters are involved at every single screening stage. And with that, I'd also like to invite Elisa to just say a few words as well. So Elisa actually is a recruiter himself, and he was very intrigued by Krownie, so he ended up joining the team as well. So Lisa, if you have anything, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, Ishan, thank you so much. And thank you, Syelo, for also the opportunity just to share a little bit about Krownie. So as Ishan mentioned, I am a recruiter who has used Krownie to screen candidates. It's definitely an advantage when it comes to high volume recruiting, or if you are in an aggressive growth stage, or you have a client who's in an aggressive growth stage, and they might be doing a lot of hiring internationally, perhaps in areas where the primary language is not English, then you have that advantage of being able to source and screen candidates who speak different languages. And you can apply and tweak the interview questions however you would like. So Krownie definitely augments the recruiter's efforts. So it's not really here to replace a recruiter. It's just augmenting their efforts and allowing them to reduce the time to hire, as well as just speed up the volume when it comes to screening candidates in high volume environments. It's one of the ways that I've been able to place a couple of candidates who I felt might have a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to the level of conversation. For example, in an instance where I was recruiting a geotechnical engineer, and Krownie was able to ask some follow-up questions that were a little bit more technical than I could have done if I were the one conducting that interview myself. And it added a layer of professionalism, a layer of, just diving deeper into the conversation and really allowing you to see the full candidate's potential. It's also one way that we're able to reduce bias. It's something that we often don't speak on a lot about in the recruiting industry, but in certain cases, you might be looking to really reduce bias, and this helps out a lot. So you definitely have that advantage of getting the instant feedback, how the candidate performed, allowing you to save time in the recruiting process, and just in general, a very applicable way to use AI in the current recruiting process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elisa. And with that, I guess that concludes the demo for Krownie. Just like to open the floor up to any questions.
I had a quick question, a couple actually. One, I'm curious to know, do you track statistics on candidates who are sent the invites who fail to complete the interview and what percentage that typically is, especially in a large applicant environment? And then secondarily, do you have any type of identity verification technology built into the tool? And if not, is that on your roadmap at all to help confirm who they're speaking with is actually the person on the call?
Sure. Thank you for your questions, James. So I'll go and answer your second question first. So in terms of verification, that is a very good point. That is an ask that some of our customers have also requested as well. So it is in the works. We currently don't have it, but it is in our roadmap to try and get done. It's one of our more immediate goals. And could you do me a favor and remind me of your first question again?
I was just curious if you had any statistics on like withdrawal rates or candidates who don't complete it when they're sent the exercise. I think it's becoming more and more common to see things like this, and so I don't think we'll see as much pushback from candidates as we used to for automated steps of the process. But I'm just curious if you send it to 100 candidates, how many actually end up completing it, or any type of metrics around those numbers?
Sure. So based on the completion rate, in terms of everyone who's actually started a Krownie interview, out of the ones that actually clicked the link and actually visited it, they completed the interview completely. In terms of that number, I would say at about 80% of those. So 80% of the candidates that we've sent links to, they've actually completed that interview. The remaining 20% are people that either may have just missed the email completely or just didn't click the link to even start or initiate the interview. I think Elisa, from your experience as well, if you'd like to jump in, I believe it's also a pretty high percentage in terms of candidates that have actually completed the interview, correct?
Yeah, so I've actually had 100% of the candidates complete the interview. There's only one guy who didn't complete the interview, but he opened it while he was driving. So that's something that he considered would not really be or allow him to fully complete the interview. But other than that, 100% of the candidates that I've sent it to have completed it. Not everyone was so familiar with AI or with voice recruiters. So, I could tell by some of the voices, just the tone of the candidate, that perhaps this person's a little bit unsure about speaking to what they might consider a robot. But then the majority of the candidates who have completed the interview did so, without any hiccups at all, no questions, no challenges.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any other questions?
I guess I actually thought of one other. You mentioned Ashby is the ATS that you're probably best integrated with. What other ATSs do you currently support?
So we currently support over 40 different ones. Ashby's the only one that we natively support with. The other ATS systems we support through this other third party called Merge. So Merge, essentially, for some context, is another third party software that itself is sort of a way for other ATS systems to integrate with them. So we integrate with Merge. But I guess, for examples of ATS systems that we do support, Ashby obviously is one. Then we have Lever. We have there's another one off the top of my head. I think Greenhouse is another one. Yeah, Greenhouse is another one. And I think those are some of the top three. Those are some of the top three that we support. Those are the three that our customers have also used. I think the other ones we do support, but based on our customers' usage so far, none of the others have mainly been used yet.
And with those integrations, Ishan, is there like a user view on kind of the score and the outcome within those ATS systems, or does it kind of like pivot them back to the Krownie platform, or is some of that note does it merge over into those ATS? Sounds like it's more native within Ashby, but I'm curious if you can share that view of what it would look like in like an Ashby.
Absolutely, and you know what? I can actually go ahead and show that right now. So unfortunately, the interview that I did for the demo wasn't an actual Ashby job. But I can kind of show you, and perhaps we can kind of see what the view would look like. So these, for example, are some of the jobs that we have within, that are integrated with, that we have created in Krownie that are also linked with Ashby. So if you go ahead and let's take a look at maybe this one right here. This is just a sample one, but let's see. So we can go and see in the view. We should have some, you can kind of see right here the notes. You can kind of see this right-hand column. Krownie, we can see that we have these Krownie notes are automatically published, so we can have things like the score. And what's nice is we also have that was not intentional, but we also have a link that actually takes you directly to that Krownie page. So yeah, in terms of the native integration, this is sort of what somebody who uses Ashby would see. So they will see that information such as the Krownie score along with the link to the actual Krownie feedback. So that way they can get a more granular view if they want to do so. In addition to that, I don't know if I have an example off the top of my head, off the right here, but we also, like, for example, you kind of saw when the candidate was doing the interview, they have the option to upload the resume. Likewise, if the candidate uploads the resume, it'll also appear on the Ashby platform as well. So that is that we do have this so far for Ashby.
Hey, Sean, I have a quick question. What has been kind of your most successful use case with this? Like, obviously, I know companies that have more high volume, but are you seeing that it's like more startup type companies? Like, what's kind of your most successful use case in terms of your profile they're aiming for customers?
So we've seen a mix. One of the companies that reached out, unfortunately, like the most common profile of our customers that we've seen are ones that deal with. So I can give you an example. One of the companies that reached out was Taro. So Taro does a lot of high volume recruiting in the Philippines for, I think, a lot of customer service related jobs. And they essentially are they typically go through about 800 interviews a month roughly. So it's a lot of positions and a lot of roles that have a lot of high churn. So people go, people leave, and for those type of roles, Krownie seems to definitely be a good use case. On the flip side, however, we were approached by Dallas AI, which is a AI company in the Netherlands, and their sort of approach is more so they just want to be more hands off when it comes to recruiting, and they want the data to come to them. So the way they sort of have their setup configured is, they just send out Krownie links and job postings, and just try and consume as much data as they can into the Krownie dashboard for all these different candidates. And then when they get the time to just go through, look at all the Krownie scores, rank the Krownie scores, see what some of the strengths and weaknesses are, and then based on that, they just go ahead and contact the candidates individually, like maybe like top 5, top 10, and they go and conduct a secondary interview.
Awesome. Because I know that obviously, like on the technical side, like for me, I would be interested to see, does it do more of a technical evaluation? But this is definitely more like with engineers specifically, you kind of always want like a hands-on approach because it's hard to get a hold of them in the first place. But I can definitely see a good use case for like BDRs or, even like customer success, like you mentioned before, roles that have a pretty high amount of applicants and you're having to go through quite a few resumes.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. But I also do see not a random use case, but almost like, again, on the flip side, like for engineers that may be, especially, or not engineers, I guess, recruiters who are having to do full spectrum, like they're the only one of, like on their team, having to now dive into like engineering recruiting, and they may not be technical themselves or have not done technical recruiting in the past. Having something like Krownie do their almost like technical evaluation might be good. And to James' point, like, I think one thing that sometimes we run into from engineering hiring is that we do get applicants, but we don't know if they're real applicants. And it's hard to evaluate if they have the skills or not. So I could also see that use case.
I completely agree. I definitely see that. Identity verification, like I mentioned, is on our roadmap. In addition to that, we are also trying to push out these new features that can detect cheating. And that's through a variety of different ways, either just through different heuristics that we can gather just from speech. And in addition to that, especially for videos that have interview enabled, we can sort of feed that through an analyzer and gather any cues that we can on whether or not we think a candidate might be cheating. Because obviously that's a big thing, especially with AI tools out there. Cluely, for example, is one of those tools that people tend to use during interviews. In addition to that, going back to the whole topic about technical interviews, that is also a feature on our roadmap specifically for coding. And we kind of find this is a nice way for for engineers to have a coder pad out in the open and to actually sort of interact with the AI. And we want that to kind of emulate a technical screen. So hopefully, with that sort of feature, we can get some more granular information about the technical aspects instead of just the behavioral aspects of a candidate.
That's awesome. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, was somebody about to ask a question?
I have one, if you don't mind, James. Is it okay? So, so you have behavioral and technical question interview styles, but my thought is I mean when I recruit an engineer, that kind of thing, like I don't dive right into technical as well. Is there like I mean, you have like a pre-screening set that you do as well? Like, I mean, I set my pre-screening as like, you know, understanding what they're looking for, what they want. I always ask for like a story, like their story in terms of the career path, that kind of thing, to segue into, hey, here are the opportunities. I'm a agency recruiter, so it's different for me than most of the people on this call right now. I'm not just recruiting for one particular company, so to speak.
So with regards to like a pre-screen, the way sort of we can envision that for Krownie is we can have two different interview flow configurations. So we can have that initial flow, which is exactly what you mentioned, which is a pre-screen, maybe just more so on the candidate's background, get to know more about their resume, see what their ambitions are. And then on the flip side, you can also have an additional interview flow. So basically you're creating two separate configurations. One will contain the pre-screen configuration, the other one will contain the more granular configuration that you like, maybe that has more specific questions, ones that relate to specific skills. So in terms of from the Krownie perspective, that's probably how we think it would look like. That being said, if that seems to be a popular requirement by many recruiters that are also, you know, similar to you that do agency recruiting, that's definitely something you can add to a roadmap and fix.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
I had a bit of a similar question. It looked like you were primarily utilizing AI to kind of create the questions, but you can create custom questions as well and create a custom interview flow. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I just did the AI generate questions more so just for convenience. Yeah. It's just faster. But yeah, you completely have the option to just go ahead and create custom questions. Sometimes also one of the benefits to using the AI generate questions is if you have all that context already embedded in, like you have the job description, you have the role. Sometimes it can come up with some pretty clever questions to ask. But as always, you know, you're more than welcome to just go ahead and just copy paste questions that you see fit for that specific interview flow.
And if you create questions with AI, can you then also go in and add custom questions to that flow?
Yes, that's correct. So I can quickly show a quick demo right now, actually, of that specific. You can go ahead and do that right now, actually.
While you're pulling that up, I'm curious how the AI is coming up with follow-up questions.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in terms of the follow-up questions, it's really a combination of two things. One is what the candidate actually replies with the initial question that the AI asks. So it's able to consume that context from that and ask follow-up questions, which is just a very cool feature as you all caught on. And in addition to that, it's the way we sort of train this AI. We have it in a way to make it. That's something we want. We want to ask follow-up questions. So it's really a combination of two things. One is the context from the initial answer to the question, and B, it's just like sort of a configuration that we set for this specific agent. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, AI.
Okay.
I think is the answer.
Basically, yes. Yeah. Cool. Sorry, let me go ahead. I'll quickly show the interview flow again. So if we start from scratch, are you guys able to see my screen? Oh, yes. Okay, I think now it just popped up.
Also, one suggestion that would probably be relatively easy with the AI generated questions and can help with identity verification is we're looking at their profile, generating a question specific to them based on where their college is or something like that, where they live. That can usually throw off fake candidates or potentially can. So just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, James. And in addition to that, like, so currently we don't currently consume the resume. So if a candidate uploads a resume, we can also make it a requirement, like the recruiter themselves can make it a requirement for the candidate to upload their resume. That way we can have those specific questions, as you mentioned, that are tied to their specific college to potentially catch them if they are lying. So Let me quickly go ahead. So like I said, so if I were to select one of these, so these are the Ashby roles that are pulled directly from Ashby. So these ones are specific ones that we have in our pipeline that we can pull for the Krownie interview. So if I go ahead, I can click this one, for example. And what's also nice is within Ashby, I can also choose whether or not we want to disable. So we can essentially apply filtering. So if I want to filter out applications, depending on the Krownie scores, let's say like I want to filter out all the candidates who don't get a score higher than like 25%, which obviously is a kind of a low score, but it just reduces a lot of clutter for the recruiter to work with. So it makes things a lot easier from that aspect. So again, let me just quickly jump to the questions. So yeah, if I go ahead and generate these questions, again, you can kind of see right here, everything's already generated, but I can always go ahead, edit them, you know, for lack of I'm out of ideas right now. But basically, if I had new questions over here, new question, I can also organize the order of the questions. So I think it's a bit of a bug here. I don't know, it is working. Yeah, so I can go ahead and organize the questions. I can also add questions if I want to. So James, to answer your question, there's full flexibility in terms of how the question's configured. You can really go at it however you want.
Sorry if I missed it, but Sean, as they're answering questions, does it give is there a score based on what you're expecting as an answer? Like, so if I'm thinking more like less on specifics, like if a value for me would be if I want to flush out values, like is this a value fit? These are the four, let's say four like primary. Here's some good questions and how I would expect an answer to be. And so we could kind of flush out candidates based on that, based on the rating there. Is that how it looks at it, or how does it determine what a good score is or what the right answer is?
So in terms of actually judging how it's really, so there is some aspect of that as well. So within the interview flow, in the question itself, you can also specify like what criteria to look for example, let's say you're looking for a specific skill, like you want a candidate to be proficient in Python. If, for example, the candidate responds with, no, I'm not proficient in Python, that is something that can influence the score. So again, that's something we can configure within the interview flow. In addition to that, it's really just like, it's related to more, we also do a score based on more subjective things like the quality of the answers, like whether or not there's enough detail. If, for example, like the AI, we've seen instances where the AI had to often follow up a lot with the candidate. It would often reflect in the score. Like let's say the candidate was only replying for like 1 to 2 word answers. That would reflect in the score as well, with feedback such that suggesting that, okay, they aren't providing the greatest detail with their questions. So it's really that. So again, it's the quality of the questions in terms of like, you have flexibility in terms of how you can figure that. There's also just more behavioral type of analysis and how the actual question is answered, but no, there's enough detail provided. And really just a combination of both those is how we come up with the score.
So it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, if there's not like specifics to an answer, right? If you're technical or you're like, let's say I'm a recruiter, do you have X many years experience recruiting X roles? That's more what it's judging based on. If I want to know if someone's driven or they have good communication and they present well, like how they answer, like I could say, this is what I'd expect. That's not really what's determining it. It's more of the specifics on the question and what we would look at as an answer, right? They either kind of have it or they don't. It's not able to judge the quality of the answer based on the question or specifically the value that we're asking.
So I guess to answer your question, I would say we do also account for that as well. Like it's not simply just a value-based analysis. Like, so just to make sure I understand. So when you're talking,
I'll rephrase it. So I'm talking specifically on like more subjective. So like if I'm judging a value fit, so a lot of roles we work on, especially if they're high volume, they're junior roles. They're people who maybe don't have specifics, but I need to figure out if based on their profile and then based on how they initially interview, if they're the right fit. So I'm going to want to understand, how do they present? How do they answer questions? Asking questions around like grit or intensity, or being able to deliver in a fast-paced environment. I myself, I know what good answers are. but are you able to say in those questions have specific answers that we'd want to hear to say this aligns with that value versus having specific, have you, like, again, for a recruiter, do you have 5 years experience? Have you recruited engineering roles, et cetera, like very specific, but more around subjective answers that a person would be able to identify? Does the AI have the ability to identify it based on the answers we would want to hear? Like inputting, hey, grit means this for me, and this answer would be suffice, or something like this answer would suffice. Does it have the ability to learn that?
Yes, it does. And that you can provide either in the question. So during the interview configuration, you can specify that, albeit you might have to be very specific with how you sort of phrase it. But short answer is yes, it can be.
You're setting specific guardrails for it to determine what good is.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, like if you don't provide those guardrails, the AI kind of does a more high level analysis of like how the question was answered.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. And also just kind of another add-on. So what's also nice is when you set up a workspace for a specific company, you can also do something like, let me see if I can quickly pull up that information. So unfortunately, I don't have access to that because I wasn't the one who created the workspace. That actually, my co-founder Ayush has some access to that. But what you can do is, for example, let's say you have company-specific values or company-specific details that you want that that aren't really related to a specific question, but you want to embed as context for this AI. You can definitely do that as well. Let's say, for example, like you're a company that is fully remote and you want to add that. So if a candidate actually asks that question to the AI, they can actually answer that. So you can provide all that context as see fit. Cool. Sorry, any other questions?
Hey, Sean, I want to make sure. Oh, sorry, Vincent.
Sorry,
just wanted to make sure you have some time to ask our group questions as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just curious to like what you're kind of as a group like. I guess anyone can really jump in. But what are your thoughts about AI and recruiting? Like just generally speaking, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, it's typically a very polarizing topic. But just curious to like what your thoughts are as recruiters or people who have worked in the recruiting space.
I would say I think we're not at a place where technology is going to replace the human element in recruiting anytime in the very near future. I do think tools like this are still useful, right? We're expected to do more with less pretty commonly nowadays, and so being able to get data and evaluate large sets of applicants, which we get flooded with applicants, it's definitely a helpful tool. And so it allows the recruiter to still focus on more high impact work. Well, initial screens are getting done. They can still do a follow-up screen if needed, but yeah, I think it's something that is helping us be more effective, and I don't see us being out of the loop in the near future.
Cool. No, that makes sense. Thank you, James. Cool. Yeah, I guess another question I had, Sabrina, was just more so, obviously within the Syelo portfolio, just do you guys currently have any AI recruiters that are also within your portfolio? Is that something that, or is this something that's sort of new to you guys?
I wouldn't say it's new. We've kind of evaluated a few different tools in this realm. This is a little bit, it is polarizing, I think, for this group specifically. Currently in our portfolio, our biggest investment on the recruiting side has been an ATS, so Kula, which they're AI native as well, but a little bit of a different type of program. But I will say, in terms of, I think it depends on what you're trying to do with this tool and who you're targeting, right? That's always been what we're running into, and when we're evaluating different tools, is does it make sense for us? Like, can we help you as a group? But yeah, as of right now, we don't have anything like this in our current portfolio.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for that. I think that's all the questions I had. Elisa, if you have any questions for Aaron, feel free to give it a shout.
No, not right now. I don't have any questions, but there is a little bit of something I wanted to just touch on. And I think the first thing was Steven's question. So correct me if I'm wrong, Steven, but then what you're referring to in terms of those guardrails that you were talking about is essentially when you're recruiting and you want to know whether or not that individual is going to be answering or giving you answers that are related to what you're looking for. Essentially, what you're saying is if you are recruiting a fruit picker, you want to know, if you ask that candidate what you pick, whether or not they're going to say fruits or vegetables. You want to be sure that what they say is in line with what you're expecting to hear. And then you need to be sure that if there's a specific type of fruit that you're referring to, that they mention that in the answer as well. And that's something that's definitely possible with Krownie. It's part of the interview flow that you set up, just so that you have those guardrails, and then you're sure that when you're getting that summary and you're looking at that candidate, that they answered or they gave you answers that are related to what you actually wanted to hear. And then with David, I think you mentioned agency recruiting and having to pre-screen the candidates before you go into those technical interviews. And that's also something that you can do with the interview flow. So with the interview flow, you can set it however you like. You can use those AI generated questions, or you can just, add your own customized questions, whatever it is you'd like to ask the candidate. So even if you're not looking to get into a technical conversation, you can just throw them, you can just throw pre-screening questions at them, set that up, and then you can use that to determine whether or not you want to move them over to the technical stage.
I think I got your analogy, but I haven't heard that one, but I think it makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, Sabrina, that pretty much wraps up the questions we have from the Krownie side.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for coming on and doing a demo today. So we will, at the end of every month, we evaluate every Syelo tank company that we've seen. We'll be touching base with you. Either way, really appreciate you coming on. Thanks everyone for joining today. I really appreciate your feedback. Sean, we will also be collecting feedback in a form, so we'll send you anything that we get from the group as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, it was a pleasure meeting everyone. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you all have a great day.
Perfect. Thanks
guys.
everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.